So as I was getting ready to go to sleep last night, I was listening to one of my favorite channels here on YouTube pretty much elucidate in no uncertain terms that unless I turn from my horrible, evil, terrible, sinful ways, I am likely going to, when I die, end up at some place like this, some rickety bridge across a giant chasm of lava, entering the gates of hell. And so I figured, well, they're probably right. So I should probably get ahead of the crowd because the Bible does say that broad is the way that leads to destruction and narrow is the gate and few that find it till salvation. So I looked on Hell's version of Zillow and found a nice little quiet street. And down at the end, there was a little cul-de-sac. And I figured, well, if I'm going to go, at least I'll find a quiet neighborhood to relax in. But then a story popped up on the news this morning. And it reminded me of something about illusions that we face in this illusion of righteousness and morality. Now, real quick before we get into this, I'd like to say humbly thank you to everyone who's showed up at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel and signed up. We talk about psychological operations over there. We take the gloves off and we don't pull any punches. Well, in today's video here, we're going to kind of do that a little bit because when I share this story with you, it's going to wake a lot of people up, but it's going to also make a lot of people mad because there's a lot of folks here in North America that need a new lesson in the rules of war. If you'd like to sign up at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel, it's only $1. It's only $1 per month, not per video, not per week. It's even less than that if you sign up for an entire year. It's like 90 cents a month. And you get 90 days. You get 3 months. And if it's not for you, comes right back at you, no questions asked. There's a $5 level over there. There's only about a half a dozen videos at that level. We have about 300 at the $1 level. The most recent one, however, is at the $5 level, and I tell a very personal story that, once you hear it, I think might give you a little bit of insight into me and where I come from and why I do the channel the way that I do it. Now, also, on the 22nd of August, which is the 12-year anniversary of this channel, we're going to be giving away the last 2 known in existence Florida Maquis coffee mugs. One side says Masters of the Mind, and in honor of today's video, the other side says Destroying the Illusion. We're going to destroy an illusion today, right here on YouTube. And trust me, you're going to want to see this. Now, who's heard the story coming out of the Navy? These 2 sailors that they have found that were, for many years, spying for China and giving them all sorts of information. U.S. Navy sailors arrested on charges of passing sensitive material to China. Jinka, you know what? These names, they always, I just don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, so I think what we're going to do is just keep it simple. We're going to just refer to them as Ensign Egg Roll and Seaman Dumpling. So Ensign Egg Roll and Seaman Dumpling got a hold of a bunch of tech manuals and a whole bunch of sensitive stuff that they would only have access to if they had security clearances and access to computers and all this kind of stuff. And funny story, they're saying that this is a big deal. Now, some might say, why is it such a big deal? Why is that a funny story? Well, with everything else that's going on with all these other sailors that have done the same thing, why is this such a problem? I mean, isn't their feelings on the matter more important than doing anything to hurt their feelings? What, Florida Maquis, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Well, wasn't the story about Governor DeSantis and Gitmo that poor prisoners at Gitmo, they were force-fed and he was in the room? Really? So let me ask, quick show of hands. Now that we have these 2 in custody and we know what they're doing, do you think it would be a good idea to let military intelligence have a crack at them? To see what they know? Maybe keep them in the deep fryer until they were sitting in the pool of their own soy sauce? Do you think that would be a good idea to do to them? You see, there's not any rule in the military that says your job is going to be measured in freedoms per eagle. There are some jobs in the military that are just nasty. And they are ugly. And they're not popular. And when the details of it come out, people are like, oh, whoa, I would never do that. Really? Really? It's funny when it was Governor DeSantis and the story about Gitmo. I was like, oh, he shouldn't be president because he was there and they were giving him Similac against their will. Really? You think that's the worst thing that should happen to people caught spying for the Chinese? Would you like a lesson in the rules of war? Who remembers this scene from The Patriot? Now, keep that same energy. Keep that same energy with your feelings about this Asian country, China. See, we read our 10 commandments and we get all the way down through number 5 and everything's cool, even 6 and 7, okay. But then you have this number 8 and number 9. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie. Really? No stealing and no lying. By way of deception, thou shalt make war. Let me ask you a question. If you knew somewhere in your town that there were official documents that could exonerate President Trump, and you knew they were there, would you break in and steal those documents and then lie about doing it in order to avoid prosecution so that you could get him to him so that he could be exonerated? Would you lie and steal to exonerate him? Really? You see, there's a lot of folks out there that talk about morality. They talk about, oh, I'm always going to do the right thing no matter what. I'm not going to hell like you, McKee. I'm not going to hell like you. Okay, that's fine. But who remembers this scene from The Patriot where he said, since I won't fight, I'm not going to vote to send others to fight in my stead. Regardless of what I believe, I'm a parent. I haven't got the luxury of principles. And then many people didn't tie these two scenes together. When Colonel Tavington, Mr. Rules of War, is confronted by a man of honor, the Lord Cornwallis, and says, the manner in which you serve me reflects upon me. See, he's the one that actually needed the lesson in the rules of war. Because why? It's an ugly business doing one's duty sometimes. Is this amazing, all this from one movie? Now, let's revisit this idea. Oh, Governor DeSantis is so terrible. They were in a padded chair, and they had to sit there in an air-conditioned room, and somebody gave them Similac they didn't want to eat. Boy, how terrible for them. How awful for them. Would you do that to these two Chinese spies if they decided to go on a hunger strike? Seriously. Do you think that would be appropriate? To get the information out of them and then break them and then maybe run game back at China? It's too late for now for that because it's in the news. But that was the game military intelligence played for a long time. They wouldn't even announce it when they knew they had somebody doing this. They would just feed them disinformation and run game back until it was no longer convenient. And then they would break them. And when I mean break them, I mean break them. And yeah, American citizens, well, yeah, when you're working for the Chinese. See, a lot of people are like, oh, I can't believe you. This is why you're going to hell. You're talking about people doing things that are wrong to feed their children. People that are doing things wrong to keep their kids from having to endure drag queen story time at public schools. Real quick, show of hands. If that's what you had to do to earn the money to send your kids to private school so that they didn't have to endure that indoctrination, would you do it? Would you do it? Would you forgive it being done? You see, if that's who's going to hell, okay. Okay, I guess that's the case. I mean, maybe who knows who your neighbors are going to be. Not sure which one of these quiet little corners I would pick, but I guess that's where I'm going if that's where I'm going. So I guess, somebody out there said recently, oh, what was the exact quote on this? Governor DeSantis is not a wartime conservative because he didn't come out forcefully enough in defense of President 45. Really? Force-fed people, force-fed our enemies, keeping them alive so that we could glean more intelligence from them. You got to wonder. You really got to wonder about somebody who's had a political advisor. You have to ask, let me ask you this question. What if it had turned out that one of these individuals had business interests in China worth millions of dollars like the daughter of President Trump does? What if they had applied for patents in 2016 and gotten approvals in 2016 right before their parent became a powerful political figure in the United States? Would that be interesting to you? Would that be something that you would want to glean from these two, what were their names again? Ensign Egg Roll and Seaman Dumpling? Would you want to know that? And what lengths would you go to? What lengths would you say were appropriate to get that information? You see, that's the question. You see, it's not all that cut and dried, is it? It's super easy. It's super easy to judge and say, well, the military does all these good things, but then as soon as something like what Governor DeSantis did comes out and did in the name of freedom, in the name of this country, all of a sudden, it's a problem. Isn't that odd? See, there was a reason the British were successful. There was a reason they had an empire. Because they understood, having come down from the Romans, what the rules of war are. Very strangely, it's the same rules that apply to survival. Above ground and breathing another day, four walls around you. Groceries in the fridge. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. If this is what it takes, this is what it takes. So, it is an ugly business doing your duty. I can't wait to see the comments on this. I really can't. Because I want to hear somebody say, no, I would never go that far. I would never go that far because, the manner in which we do things reflects upon those, and, we need to have principles regardless. And, but if it was for President Trump, if it was for him, I would make that sacrifice. I would commit breaking and entering, and I would steal, and I would lie. I would do all these things. Or if you knew, would you say, well, that's just the way it goes. I'm not going to be deceptive. I'm not going to violate the Ten Commandments, not in the name of anything. Would you steal or lie to feed your kids? Would you steal or lie to feed your kids? There was plenty of houses on that street, depending on what your answer is. According to one of my favorite channels. So, anyway, those of you who are curious where I got these pictures, it's from World of Warcraft. It's a dungeon called Blood Maw Slag Mines. I'm sure a lot of you might have seen this, but it's a very interesting dungeon where you go in and, of course, you defeat the ogres and that run it. But there's these very strange areas that you can go in where there's no trash mobs to fight or anything, and it's just basically a little neighborhood. And it's like, wow, this is kind of cozy. So, anyway, I will leave it there. So, God bless. Thank you, everyone who joins us at the Patreon channel. You guys are making a huge difference. A massive, massive difference. I know Patriot Nurse doesn't talk about it a lot, but I'm sure it's making a difference to her. She just put out a video earlier today talking about how rough things are getting up in Tennessee. There are other channels as well that could definitely use your support that are out there. So anyway, pray on it. Whatever you can do, if you can. God bless you. If you can't, we're still going to pray for you anyway. Doesn't matter. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. Pray for each other. Lift each other up. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.